On Thanksgiving, my parents gave my sister a $13,000 cruise and handed me a $2 Powerball ticket in front of relatives. Mom smiled. You always say you don't need anything. Nora, Dad laughed. If it hits, dinner's on you. Everyone joined in. 3 days later, every number on that ticket matched. The jackpot $100 million. I didn't call my family. I signed the ticket, locked it away, and spoke to an attorney first. Then Mom texted, "Do you still have that ticket?" I answered, yes. 5 hours later, I had 79 missed calls. The first voicemail congratulated me. The last changed everything, according to my father. The ticket they'd mocked me for accepting had never belonged to me. I wasn't the unsuccessful daughter. I was the easy one. At 33, I worked as a senior project coordinator for a regional transit agency outside Richmond. I earned a little over $90,000 a year, owned a modest condo, had no serious debt, and could handle an emergency without calling my parents. To them, that somehow meant I needed less. My sister, Camille, was different. She was 36, a regional sales director for a medical device company, married to Evan, and always coming home from somewhere with airport lounge stories and polished photographs. My parents loved introducing her. Camille runs an entire region. With me, it was usually Nora works in transit. I'd been promoted the previous spring, Mom said. That's nice. When Camille became regional director, my parents hosted dinner for 14 people. I told myself it didn't matter. That had become my specialty. It's fine. The family trip I wasn't included in fine. The more expensive birthday gift Camille received because she appreciated nice things. Fine. Mom forgot an important work presentation. Fine. Eventually. Nora is independent became the explanation for almost everything they didn't do for me. Thanksgiving that year followed the pattern perfectly. My parents had 22 relatives packed into their house when Mom announced she was giving us our Christmas presents early. Camille opened hers first. Inside was a prepaid 10-night Caribbean cruise for her and Evan balcony cabin. Flights, transfers, excursions, $13,000. Camille stared at them. Oh my God, this is too much. You've worked so hard, Mom said. You deserve something special. Everyone applauded. Then Mom handed me a thin envelope. Inside was one Powerball quick pick. $2. You always say you don't need anything, she said brightly. So we thought we'd give you a little luck. Dad laughed. If it hits, dinner's on you. The room joined in. Camille gave an uncomfortable smile. Mom, that's a little brutal. But she was still smiling. So was I. Thanks, I said. I'll try not to spend it all at once. More laughter. My cousin was filming the whole gift exchange on her phone. At the time, none of us knew those 30 seconds would become the most important evidence in my life. I forgot about the ticket until Sunday morning. It was still in my purse, folded behind a grocery receipt. The Powerball drawing had been the night before. I almost threw the ticket onto the counter and kept making coffee. Instead, I opened the official results. The first number matched. Then the second, then the third, by the fifth white ball. My hands had started shaking. I checked the Powerball. Match. I stared at the screen, then at the ticket, then back at the screen. $100 million. I refreshed the page twice. Same numbers. My first instinct was to call my mother. My second was smarter. I searched what lottery winners should do before claiming a jackpot. Then I signed the back of the ticket, photographed both sides, slipped it into a plastic sleeve, and locked it away. Monday morning, I called an attorney. Leah Dorsey was 49, calm, precise, and unimpressed by the size of the number. Her first question wasn't what I planned to buy. It was, who gave you the ticket, my mother? Did she clearly give it to you in front of 22 relatives? Anything recorded? My cousin filmed the gift exchange. Leah nodded. Good. Save that video. Don't argue with anyone about ownership, and don't tell people where the ticket is. Then she explained something I hadn't understood. The $100 million was the advertised annuity jackpot. The cash option would be far lower, around $45 million before taxes, and even after automatic withholding. I would still need to reserve money for the final tax bill. Strangely, hearing the real numbers helped. I stopped thinking like someone who had just found $100 million. I started thinking like someone holding one extremely valuable piece of paper. For the next 2 days, no one in my family knew. Then, the local news reported that the winning ticket had been sold at a convenience store 3 miles from my parents' house. At 10:17 that morning, Mom texted me. "Do you still have that lottery ticket from Thanksgiving I showed Leah?" "You don't have to answer." "I know." I typed yes. It matched all 6 numbers. It's signed and secure. My attorney is handling the claim. Then I put my phone on silent and walked into a meeting. 5 hours later, I looked down. 79 missed calls. 79, I counted twice. 48 calls from Mom. 31 from Dad. Camille had sent one text. "Call me when you're ready. I'm not asking you for anything." That message felt almost strange after everything else. I started with Mom's first voicemail. "Nora. Oh my God. Sweetheart. Congratulations. Call me immediately." Her third sounded less excited. "We really need to discuss this before you make any decisions. By the 7th. Please don't sign anything without talking to your father. By the 12th, Nora. This affects the whole family." Dad's messages were shorter. "Nora, call me. Then your attorney needs to speak with me. And finally, we need to clarify something. Technically, your mother bought that ticket." I stopped the recording. There it was, not even 5 hours. They had gone from congratulations to ownership. I called them that evening with Leah sitting beside me. Mom answered before the first ring finished. "Oh, thank God. Nora, honey, we've been worried sick. I was in meetings." Dad cut in. "Let's just clear this up calmly." "Clear what up, the ticket?" I waited. "Your mother purchased it," he said. "That creates an ownership issue." "No, Mom bought it, then gave it to me." "It was a joke gift," Mom said quickly. "A $2 stocking stuffer type thing." "It was Thanksgiving." "That's not the point." "What is the point?" Her voice sharpened. "We never intended to give you $100 million. I looked at Leah. She said nothing, so I answered. "You knew exactly what you gave me. You just didn't know what it would become." Silence. Then Mom said something I would remember longer than the 79 calls. "How is this fair? Camille got a $13,000 cruise, and now you get $100 million. I almost laughed. You weren't worried about fairness when you thought I got $2. Dad exhaled hard. "Nora, don't make this ugly." "I'm not. We may need to contact the lottery and establish our claim." "Okay." That stopped him. "Okay. Have your lawyer contact mine." Neither of them had expected that answer. The old me would have explained, negotiated, tried to make everyone comfortable. This time, I ended the call. The next morning, my cousin sent Leah the Thanksgiving video. There was Mom, smiling as she handed me the envelope. "This one is yours, Nora." Then, Dad laughing. "If it hits, dinner's on you." Leah replayed that line once. Their ownership argument didn't disappear by magic, but it suddenly looked very weak. By the end of the week, their lawyer had not filed anything. Instead, Dad called again. His opening sentence told me they had changed strategies. "Forget the legal technicalities," he said. "We need to talk about what you owe this family." Their lawyer never filed a claim. I didn't hear that directly from him. "Of course." I heard it in the way Dad stopped saying the ticket was legally theirs. Instead, he started saying something else. "Legally yours doesn't mean morally yours alone." 3 days later, he asked to meet. He arrived at my condo carrying a black binder. Mom came with him. On the cover, Dad had printed, "Winslow Family Wealth Plan." I stared at it. "You made a plan for my money." "For family security," he corrected. He opened the binder. $4 million for Mom and Dad, $4 million for Camille, $2 million in a family reserve, $5 million in an investment pool that Dad would help oversee, $15 million. They had allocated it before I had even finished the claim process. Dad leaned forward. "Sudden wealth destroys people. Nora, you need structure. I have an attorney, a CPA, and an investment advisor. Those people don't know this family." "That's exactly why I hired them," Mom sighed. "This isn't about controlling you. I looked down at the binder. It has my money divided into sections. We're trying to make this fair. There was that word again. I closed the binder. You gave Camille a cruise. You gave me a lottery ticket. Somehow only my gift came with a committee. Mom's face tightened. We didn't know yours would become worth this much. I know. That was the entire problem. Later that evening, Camille called. I don't want $4 million, she said immediately. Good, because I'm not giving you $4 million. She laughed once, nervously. Then her voice softened. Could you give Mom and Dad something not $15 million? Just enough to calm them down. I leaned against the kitchen counter. I've spent 33 years being the easy daughter. I'm not buying that job permanently. That's not fair. No, you act like I asked them to treat me differently. I don't think you asked. I paused. I think you noticed and decided it was easier not to stop them. She went quiet when she finally spoke. Her voice had changed. Maybe I should cancel the cruise? No. Nora, they gave it to you. After everything that happened, it's yours. Another silence. That's the point. 2 days later, Mom called while Camille and I were both on speaker. She spent 10 minutes praising how carefully I was handling the money. Then she said, casually, Camille, honestly, you could learn something from your sister about restraint. Nobody spoke. For 33 years, that comparison had always gone the other direction. That night, Camille called me again. I think I finally understand something, she said. What? Her voice was barely above a whisper. I don't think they ever had a favorite daughter. I waited. I think they just had a favorite version of success. I thought they loved me more. Camille said it without looking at me. We were sitting in a coffee shop halfway between our apartments, the kind of place where nobody cared who had won the lottery or who had gotten the better Christmas gift. She stared at her untouched coffee. That sounds horrible. It sounds honest. She gave a short laugh. For years. I thought I was the favorite because I'd done everything right. The job, Evan, the travel, the house. And now Mom talks about you like you invented money. I almost smiled. Camille didn't. She told Aunt Denise you were always the financially responsible one. Last month. She told Aunt Denise I was the one with ambition. That was the thing about our mother. Her stories changed faster than her memory of telling them. Camille finally looked at me. I don't think they loved me more. I think they liked what I represented. I sat with that. Because I had spent years believing Camille had something I didn't. Maybe what she had really possessed was a position. And positions could change. Over the next 2 weeks, it became impossible to ignore. Mom invited me to a charity dinner she had never once mentioned before. She asked whether I would let her introduce me to some important people. Then, during Sunday lunch, she criticized Camille for booking an expensive spa treatment on the cruise. Nora would never waste money like that. Camille put down her fork. You bought me the cruise. Mom blinked. That's not the point. I almost laughed at the familiar phrase. Later, Camille called. I knew it bothered you, she said. What did the difference? The gifts, the dinners, the way they talked about me. I stayed quiet. She continued. I told myself you didn't care because you never complained. I cared. I know. Her voice cracked. I think I told myself that because it let me enjoy being the one they chose. That apology mattered because it didn't make her innocent. I'm sorry, Nora. A week later, our parents called both of us over. Dad had abandoned the wealth plan binder, but Mom was still trying. If you won't do anything for us, she said, at least make sure Camille is taken care of. Camille straightened. I don't need taking care of. You're her sister. Nora was my sister when you gave me $13,000 and gave her 2. Mom stiffened. Camille, we're trying to make this fair. Stop using me. The room went silent. Mom stared at her. I'm trying to protect your future. No. You're trying to make this look fair now. Camille's voice shook, but she kept going. Fairness mattered when you gave me $13,000 and gave her 2. Dad started. Camille. She cut him off. The ticket was hers when it was worthless. It's hers now. Mom's face changed. After everything we've done for you, Camille swallowed. Exactly. You did more for me." Then she looked at me. That's why I should have said something sooner. For once. Nobody had anything to add. Afterward, Camille and I stood beside our cars in the driveway. Neither of us knew how to fix 30 years, so I asked the smallest question I could. "Coffee tomorrow?" She nodded. Yeah. The jackpot hadn't made me the favorite daughter. It had finally made both of us stop auditioning for the job. For the first year after the jackpot, I made one rule. No family loans, no investments in cousins' businesses, no allowances, no temporary help that somehow became permanent. If someone asked me for money, the answer was the same. Not this year. Most of the money stayed invested. I paid off my condo, improved my home security, took several weeks away from work, and built an estate plan with people who actually understood what $45 million before taxes meant. I did not buy a mansion. I did not quit my job the next morning. Money had given me choices. I wanted time before choosing. My parents stopped asking for millions. Mom stopped because she was angry. Dad stopped because, eventually, he understood. 3 months after the family meeting, he came to my condo alone. No binder, no calculations. He sat at my kitchen table for a long time before speaking. "We got used to calling you independent." I waited. "What we really meant was that you wouldn't complain." That landed harder than any argument about the ticket. "You made being easy the price of being included," I said. Dad looked down. "Yes." Then he said the one thing I had needed him to admit. "The ticket was your gift. I knew it was your gift." I only started telling myself otherwise after it won. I didn't forgive 33 years in one afternoon, but I believed him. Mom was harder. She still insisted any parent would have panicked over that much money. "Maybe," I told her. "But not every parent gives one daughter $13,000, gives the other $2, and laughs about it." She had no answer. Camille and I kept meeting for coffee, then lunch, then sometimes nothing more than a text asking how the other was doing. We weren't suddenly best friends. We were learning how to be sisters without our parents keeping score. As for the original Powerball ticket, I never framed it. I stored it with the documents from the claim. It had already done its job. It hadn't made me valuable. It had simply made everyone else's definition of value impossible to ignore. 1 year later. Most of the jackpot was still invested. I eventually reduced my hours at work, not because I hated the job, but because money had finally given me something I'd never had before: the freedom to choose without asking anyone's permission. Dad and I spoke regularly. Mom and I spoke carefully. Camille and I were still rebuilding. One coffee, one lunch, one honest conversation at a time. That Thanksgiving, Camille hosted. No dramatic gift exchange, no speeches, no ranking, just dinner, at one point. A cousin laughed and asked, "So whatever happened to that $2 ticket?" I smiled. "It's somewhere safe." And that was all I said, because the ticket was never the important part. The money didn't make me more worthy than Camille. It didn't make my parents' old choices disappear. It simply exposed what had been there all along. When that ticket was worth $2, they thought it measured me. When it became worth $100 million, I realized it had measured them. If you were Nora, would you have shared any of the jackpot or kept the boundary exactly where she did? Tell me in the comments. And if you enjoy stories about family favoritism, sudden money, and quiet consequences, subscribe so you don't miss the next story.